For today's video, I'm going to be trying something a little bit different. It's time to really get creative and really try to fill that void until hockey comes back in October. And this video is going to be, what if every NHL team lost their best player? So I'm going to be going on NHL 19, taking a look at the rosters and removing the highest overall player. Maybe you guys don't think that's the best player, maybe I don't either, but it's just the highest overall player in the game for that team, so that's who I'm going to take off. I'm going to put that roster in a season mode, simulate, and eventually see who comes out on top and wins the Stanley Cup. We're going to look at the awards, the stats, all that type of stuff. I think it should be a really fun video, but before I get into it, I want to give a shout out to @HelixTex, I believe is his Twitter @. He made me a new channel banner and logo. You guys can see it on the channel now. I think it looks super clean. Make sure you guys let me know your thoughts on that. And now, without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. So before getting the simulation underway, I want to start out by showing you guys the player that I did take off every single team. Starting with the Pacific, we took off Johnny Gaudreau, who was a 91 overall, and I will say this, if there was two players on the same team with the same overall, I literally just picked the player who was above the other one in NHL 19. Brent Burns coming off San Jose as a 90, Marc-Andre Fleury 88 coming off Vegas, Phil Kessel coming off the Arizona Coyotes, Elias Pettersson an 87 overall taken away from the Canucks after just 1 year, John Gibson 90 overall off the Ducks, obviously Connor McDavid a 94 overall off the Oilers, that's going to be a huge loss for them, and then Drew Doughty a 90 overall for the LA Kings is coming off the team. Now in the Central Division, we have Pekka Rinne, a 90 overall goaltender coming off of the Preds, Mark Scheifele as an 89 coming off the Winnipeg Jets, Tarasenko for the Blues, Tyler Seguin for the Dallas Stars, obviously McKinnon for the Avs, Patty Kane for the Chicago Blackhawks, and Devin Dubnyk for the Minnesota Wild. Moving over to the Eastern Conference, we have Alex Ovechkin coming off the Caps at a 92, Barzal for the Islanders, Sidney Crosby obviously coming off the Penguins as their best player, Sebastian Aho for the Hurricanes, Seth Jones for the Columbus Blue Jackets, Claude Giroux for the Flyers, Panarin for the New York Rangers, and Taylor Hall for the New Jersey Devils. Now lastly, for the Atlantic, we have Nikita Kucherov off of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Patrice Bergeron for the Bruins, Austin Matthews coming off the Leafs, Carey Price for the Habs, Bobrovsky for the Florida Panthers, Jack Eichel for the Buffalo Sabres, Dylan Larkin for the Detroit Red Wings, and Thomas Chabot coming off the Ottawa Senators. So now that all you guys know all the players that are coming out of the league and coming off of the respective teams, let's put this roster into NHL 19 and simulate a season and see how everything plays out. So after putting this roster in NHL 19, we now have the results after simulating a season. The Toronto Maple Leafs win the Atlantic with 111 points. That makes sense. Still a lot of talent there without Austin Matthews. Buffalo makes the playoffs, so does Tampa, and so does Detroit somehow. That kind of blows my mind. I'm very curious to see, who their top player was and what the point totals were for some of their guys, because without Larkin, I thought especially that team would be, one of the worst teams in the entire NHL. Now moving to the Metro, we have Columbus winning the division without Seth Jones and obviously without Bobrovsky, Panarin, and those guys. That kind of blows my mind. The Rangers, the Flyers, and the Penguins are the other playoff teams from the Metro division. The Penguins, obviously that makes sense, without Sidney Crosby, they still have Malkin, Letang, Gensel, and all those guys, Matt Murray too, so that's no really surprise there. Now for the Pacific Division, San Jose wins the division. Arizona, LA, Edmonton, and Vancouver all make the playoffs. Edmonton without McDavid, that's kind of surprising. Now in the Central, the St. Louis Blues, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Minnesota Wild are all of the playoff teams filling out the West. No Nashville, Winnipeg, Chicago, or Dallas. That's kind of surprising, but obviously with NHL 19 simulation, anything happens. So now we're going to be taking a look at the player stats from each team. Getzlaf led the way for the Ducks. Kasha, Raquel did good too. There really isn't any surprise there, so now let's move on to the Arizona Coyotes, where you have Ekman Larson had a good year, Clayton Keller. Without Kessel, it's pretty much the same team we saw this past season. Boston, they kind of struggled without Bergeron, did not end up making the playoffs. I still thought they'd be one of the better teams. Now the Buffalo Sabres, Jeff Skinner is the new #1 guy there without Jack Eichel, and he thrived in that role, another 40-goal season. Calgary Flames, they really struggled without Johnny Gaudreau to get any offense, and that is kind of to be expected, but I thought they'd do a little bit better than that. Dougie Hamilton, the leading scorer for Carolina, they also really struggled without Sebastian Aho. Then we have the Chicago Blackhawks. They were okay, but still without Patrick Kane, they're really not even close to the same caliber of team as they are with them. Mikko Rantanen struggled offensively without McKinnon, kind of adding fuel to people's fires when they say he's overrated. Pierre-Luc Dubois took the next step and is the best player on Columbus, led them to the playoffs, which I really didn't expect. expect. Radulov, Pavelski, Ben all had solid seasons, but without Tyler Seguin, that team is most likely going to struggle and not really get too much done. Now Detroit, this is who I was surprised with. Mantha 60 points, Nielsen 55, Rasmussen 51. I honestly have no clue how that team made the playoffs. Then Edmonton, Draisaitl, leading scorer obviously James Neal with 75 points. If he could do that in real life, Edmonton fans everywhere would be praising Ken Holland, but that's surprising. Dadonov, Huberdeau, Barkov, solid seasons. I thought Barkov would do a little bit better, but without Bobrovsky, that team probably struggled. Kovalchuk leads the way for the Kings. Now that's pretty surprising. The Minnesota Wild, they're led by some veterans. They actually made the playoffs in this, so that's pretty interesting. The Montreal Canadiens, it looks like they put up some solid offense, but without Price and net, they're probably not going to be a top team. Roman Josi led the Nashville Predators in points. They're probably still going to be a good team, but without Pekka Rinne, it's going to be questionable in goal. The New Jersey Devils, no Taylor Hall. Nico Hischier is the new #1 guy there. Certainly no surprise looking at the player stats for the Devils. Then we have the New York Islanders. They definitely struggled to get offense without Matt Barzal, Eberle, and Lee and Bailey, the leading scorers. No 60-point guys for the Islanders. The New York Rangers, pretty much the same team as last year without Artemi Panarin, so obviously they're going to be relatively solid. Zibanejad another good year. And then we have Colin White leading the way in points for Ottawa. That's pretty interesting. He probably is going to win the Calder, putting up 50+ points. For the Philadelphia Flyers, they were led by Jacob Voracek. No surprise there, but without Giroux, they're definitely not going to be a contending team 100%. Then the Pittsburgh Penguins, Malkin, no surprise there, thriving, a 90+ point season. Probably going to win the Art Ross, probably going to win the Hart as well. Erik Karlsson, 80 points for a defenseman. He's thriving without Brent Burns, back to his old ways like he was playing in Ottawa. St. Louis, Ryan O'Reilly with 80 points. That's definitely an impressive year for him. He's more of a two-way guy. Steven Stamkos, Tyler Johnson, Palat, good years, but this team really did struggle without Nikita Kucherov to provide a lot of offense. This is no surprise here. Tavares, Marner, Nylander, all very strong years. I forgot to take off Marleau from the roster, so I apologize for that. Hopefully it doesn't make too big of a difference. Bo Horvat leading Vancouver, 80+ points, a super impressive season for him. Vegas led by Pacioretty, Stone, and Karlsson, but without Fleury, is that team really going to be good? We're going to have to wait and see. Nick Backstrom, Kuznetsov, they struggled with Ovechkin. Really nobody to pass the puck to score goals there. Blake Wheeler, Laine Ehlers, solid seasons, but without Scheifele, not even close to the same team as they are when he is in the lineup. Now that we've looked at the player stats, let's simulate through the playoffs and see who wins the Stanley Cup. So as you guys can see here, looking at the playoff bracket, the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup in 7 games over the Los Angeles Kings. Now the Toronto Maple Leafs, third team, I thought definitely would do well and were probably one of the favorites in this experiment, but the LA Kings I thought would be one of the worst teams in the league. I mean, without Drew Doughty, but for some reason Ilya Kovalchuk simulates like an absolute monster in this, and that is probably a big reason why they were able to, get to the Stanley Cup final and ultimately fall in the end to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So an overall very just interesting and weird season. This was a pretty fun thing to do, but now let's go look at some of the player stats throughout the playoffs and see who some of the leaders were. So the leader in playoff points was Mitch Marner, 28 points in 23 games, and that is to be expected. Toronto going all the way. I'm sure a lot of their players are going to be up here. You have Tavares, Kovalchuk, who, like I said, simulates like a monster for some reason. Kopitar had a good playoff, same with Nylander, Brown, Toffoli. Leon Draisaitl had a pretty good playoff run as well without Connor McDavid. He really thrived in that role. Patty Marleau, like I said, wasn't supposed to be in here, so I apologize for that, but hopefully didn't make too big of a difference. We have a lot of Minnesota guys because they had a pretty solid and relatively good playoff run as well, but all of it is relatively, to be expected. Just Toronto and LA, a lot of those guys, because those are the teams that made it furthest. But now that we've looked at some of the playoff leaders, let's go take a look at who won all the NHL awards. So starting off with the Cup, no surprise here. Obviously, you guys already know the Toronto Maple Leafs won the Stanley Cup. The President's Trophy also went to the Leafs, the Clarence S. Campbell to the Los Angeles Kings, and the Prince of Wales obviously to the Toronto Maple Leafs. But now getting into the fun stuff, the player awards. Art Ross, Evgeny Malkin, I'm sure we all knew that after seeing him put up big numbers in the regular season. Malkin also wins the Hart Trophy. James Norris goes to Erik Karlsson, an amazing season for him in San Jose without Burns. Erik Karlsson also gets the Lady Byng. That's kind of surprising. Casey Middlestat wins the Calder. I kind of thought it was going to be Colin White, but I guess Middlestat, taking that step and being a #1 center there without Jack Eichel, it does make sense that he would win the Calder Trophy, especially since Buffalo simulated pretty well. Conn Smythe went to Freddie Anderson, so he definitely had to have a very strong playoffs. Freddie Anderson also won the Vezina Trophy. Anderson also won the William N. Jennings. Bill Masterson to Ian Cole. Selke to Jordan Stahl. And the Ted Lindsay to Evgeny Malkin, and the Rocket Richard to Max Pacioretty, so he led the league in scoring in terms of goals, so good for him. But that is going to wrap up looking at all of the NHL awards and wrap up all of the simulation as well. So that does it for this what if video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. If you want to see more videos like this throughout the summer up until the NHL season, make sure to smash a like on it. This was something different, so I'm kind of nervous to see how it turns out and to see how you guys perceive it and if you actually like it. So make sure to let me know all your feedback down in the comment section below. And with all that being said, I hope you guys all enjoyed today's video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.